Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be playing through the game with the other fossil of this generation. Craidily is even more weird than Armaldo. His design is much more questionable. But at least its typing is unique. Anyway, for the rules, I can only use my starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't increase my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. Compared to Armaldo, Craidily is a much more tanky Pokémon. It has good defenses and okay attacking stats. The typing is also interesting as it makes it neutral to water and gives me a stab super effective move against them. So that will surely be useful in the later parts of the game. On the other hand, for the first few fights in the game, our rock typing is going to be extremely useful as it makes us resistant to their normal attacks. As far as starting movesets go, Craidily is okay. It has Acid and Astonish, which deal okay damage, but the other two moves are not that great. Still, those two attacks should be more than enough to carry us. The only problem is that both of them are not very good against Roxanne, since she uses very physically bulky Pokémons. But for her, we can get the move Bullet Seed just outside the forest, and since Craidily is a grass type, he can learn it. By having this super effective attack, I felt confident enough to take on Roxanne at a lower level than usual. In fact, I am the same level as her ace Pokémon, so things should be somewhat even. The first two Geodudes go down very easily to a few seeds, and from there I can face off against her last Pokémon. Nosepass definitely takes a lot longer to defeat, mostly because she still has the two potions and the berry, so I have to effectively defeat Nosepass 3 times, but that's not really an issue, since her damage to me is not very great. Once we have obtained the first badge in the game, we can do the optional quest where we have to rescue this Wingull from the Team Aqua Grant. His Poochyena is generally very easy unless you are using a Pokémon that only has psychic moves, and so he is quickly defeated too. Next, before we can leave this town, we have to take on the optional fight against our rival May. Her team improved quite a bit, but since her first Pokémon is Lotad instead of Wingull, this fight should not be too bad. Her starter now has the move Ember, which is much better than Scratch, but since I am part rock, it is only neutral against me. By defeating Roxanne, we got the move Rock Tomb, which is not great, but since it is a stab, it's a decent option. Today I also skipped Brawly since I do not have any great moves to deal with him and his Pokémons are super effective on me, and so I got to Slateport. Here we have to defeat a few more Team Aqua Grunts who are trying to steal some engine parts or something like that. Their Pokémons are very weak and between Rock Tomb and Bullet Seed I have something super effective on all of them, and so they are not really a problem. What turned out to be the first wall of the game is the fight against our rival in the land bridge before Moville. Here, May has evolved her starter, and now Combusken knows Double Kick. That move is super effective on me, and so it deals a lot of damage, especially if she gets a crit with that. In the successful attempt, I got a bit lucky as Rock Tomb did not miss too much, and that gave me just enough turns to defeat her chicken before she could do the same to me. Once her starter was defeated, I still had Lombre to deal with, but since that guy does not have a whole lot of damage, I was able to take it down in a couple of turns. Also, by leveling up, I relearned Ingrain. It may seem a bit of a weird move, but I think it will be useful against the next gym leader. Wattson will be a slow fight. Fortunately for me, his stab electric moves are not very effective on me thanks to my grass typing, and that allows me to endure many of them. Unfortunately, at this point, I do not have any move to deal much damage to his Magneton either, and so the fight against it turned out to be a slog. For this occasion, I didn't even equip a Cherry Berry because I knew that Magneton would be able to paralyze me multiple times, and so I preferred to equip a Miracle Seed to slightly increase the damage from a Bullet Seed. I'm not sure whether Rock Tomb or Bullet Seed would be better. Both of them are not very effective and their power is not that great, but since Rock Tomb has a decent chance to miss, I preferred to shoot some seeds. I was also expecting Ingrain to recover a bit more HP. It only recovers 5 or 6 HP each turn, which is not that great, but I guess it's better than nothing, especially because Magneton can only do slightly more damage than that with his electric moves. I would have been screwed if he used Sonic Boom all the time, since that move always deals 20 damage, but since he did not spam it, I was able to get through him. Magneton was also a bit of a problem, but much less so than Magneton. It has higher special attack, but his electric moves still deal very little damage to me. And so, after a few more rock tombs, the electric dog finally fell too, and with that we have earned the third badge of this region. I was hoping to finish the fight against it with a couple more rock tombs, but that move decided to miss like 3 times in a row, and so I ran out of PPs and had to finish the electric dog by shooting even more seeds against it. Now that we have defeated Wattson, we can use the move Rock Smash out of combat, and so we can open the way to the rest of the landmass. By doing so, we eventually are able to reach the Meteorfall Cave, where we meet the two teams, and here we are informed about Max's plan. To try to prevent him from triggering the volcano, we challenge him to a duel, and the fight against him was not that easy. In fact, I lost once. At this point, my moveset is mostly physical, and so the Intimidate from my Tiena hurts quite a lot. By lowering my attack power, it means that I have to take a lot more turns to defeat Camerupt, and in the meantime he can spam high-level magnitudes to deal a considerable amount of damage to me. Even in the successful attempt, things were kinda close, and it may have gone very differently if I did not get a confusion from Secret Power. Once we have finally defeated the Team Magma leader for the first but not last time, we can get to the next gym, which is the fire one. I was a bit worried about this, and so I leveled just a tiny bit more to get to Amnesia. This move will increase my special defense by a lot, and so their fire attacks should not deal that much damage to me, even if they are neutral. By using it a couple of times at the start against her Numel, I set up myself nicely to deal with her stronger Pokémons. Both Secret Power and Rock Tomb are good options to deal with her Pokémons, but I preferred to use Secret Power most of the time for the increased accuracy and the chance to paralyze them. I was a bit worried because Torkoal has a lot of physical defense, but then I saw that my damage was decent and things were looking quite good until it used Attract. That move can be very annoying, but today it was not the case, and so I was able to defeat her ace Pokémon and get this badge too. Now it's finally time to backtrack and clean up the fight against Brawly. By this point, his Pokémons are much lower level than me and so do not offer much of a challenge. By using Secret Power a few times, I can clear this gym and get the badge too. And now that we have the first 4 badges, we have to go face our dead Norman. The fight against him could be a bit more scary because his Pokémons have a lot of damage, but fortunately for me, most of their attacks are normal and I can resist them. Even so, they can still deal a lot of damage since they are stab. Another thing that I have to worry about is Slacking's counter, but as long as I remember to use a special move when he can attack, I should be fine. The fight against Slacking took quite a while, mostly because it is very tanky and so my attacks do not do a whole lot of damage. Also, he put me to sleep a couple of times with Juan, which is a bit annoying. And of course, Norman also has a couple of hyper potions to fully heal his ace Pokémon. At least this guy did not deal a lot of damage to me, unlike his next Pokémon. Vigoroth got a couple of nice crits with his attacks, and so he was able to quite chunk my HP. Not going to lie, I got a bit worried right about here. Fortunately, Linoon threw by using Belly Drum, and so I was able to defeat Norman without resets. By acquiring this badge, we can use Surf out of combat, and so we can get to the other half of the map. Here, eventually, we reach the Weather Institute, where we have to defeat the Team Aqua Admiral Shelly. Her Pokémons are not really that strong, but still I am mostly using a physical attacking moveset, and so the Intimidate is still very annoying to deal with. Next, we have to take on our rival once again, and her team improved even further this time. I was a bit annoyed at how tanky her Pokémons are and how many protects Pelipper was able to use. Between those two things, the fight against her took quite a few extra turns than what I would have liked, but at least it was not really a dangerous fight. Once we have defeated our rival too, we can do this stuff with Steven to get the Sylph Scope, and with that key item we can enter the next gym. Even though I have the type advantage with my rock attacks, I was still a bit worried about Winona, mostly because of her Skarmory. This Pokémon has a Sand Attack to make your life miserable, but also has a Steel Wing, which is super effective on us. Fortunately, I was able to defeat it before it could do too much damage to me, and so I could take on the rest of his team not too scared. Rock Tomb was very nice to me today and did not miss at all. Thanks to that, I was able to defeat her stronger Pokémons in a couple of attacks and earn the Flying Badge. With that, we can use Fly out of combat to move around places, but unfortunately we still have to walk to the new cities. Our next major fight is going to be against our rival once again, at least it's the last time she will appear in the video. Her team improved even more by adding a Tropius, and her levels have also increased slightly, but that is nowhere near enough to protect her from Craidily. The fight is more or less the same as earlier. It takes a few turns to defeat her Pokémons, but they are not very threatening. By defeating May here, we can get to the substitute TM that I will surely use for later in the game. Next, we can get to the Pokémon Cemetery, where we receive the Magma Emblem, and with this key item we can infiltrate the cave where Groudon resides. As we arrive, we see Maxie waking it up with the wrong orb, and so the legendary runs away. Frustrated, Maxie tries to fight us, but unfortunately for him, my moveset is no longer so dependent on physical attacks, and so his Intimidate is not that big of a deal anymore. It still took a few turns, mostly because Crobat was able to confuse me, and of course I had to hit myself quite a few times. But eventually I can defeat all of his Pokémons and be done with him, at least for now. Next we can get to the Team Aqua base, where we can only find one of their admirals, and the fight against him is not really noteworthy. His Pokémons are not particularly strong, and since my Tiena used Swagger on me on turn 1, my attack is also quite high, and so I can one-shot all of his Pokémons. Next, I spent some time to go get a return, since I thought it might be useful for the Tate and Liza fight. Here I was not really sure what to do. Amnesia could have been good since most of their attacks are special, but also by spamming Ancient Power I could get an Omni Boost, which would be much more useful. Today I did not have Metal Claw to easily deal with his rock types, and so I had to spam Giga Drain or Ancient Power to try to defeat them. Whenever my HP got kinda low, I could use Giga Drain on one of their Pokémons to recover some of them. Unfortunately, along the way, Craidily used Light Screen, which is a massive pain since my special damage is halved for a little while. To make things even worse, his Lunaton was able to land a Hypnosis, but thankfully I did not stay asleep for long. Things did get quite close towards the end of the fight, as my HP was dangerously low. Eventually, his light screen faded, and so my special damage got back to normal. Thanks to that, I could finish off his remaining Pokémons much easier, and that's the 7th badge. And now we can move on to the next double fight on this island. This time around, we are aided by Steven against the leadership of Team Magma. This fight is not that dangerous, but it will take a long time to clear since they have a lot of Pokémons. They don't have any great move to deal with me, so the damage I take should not be that high, and I can recover it with Giga Drain. Also, Metang knows both of the screen moves, and once in a while he likes to use them. Along the way, I also can get a couple of Ancient Power boosts, which will increase my stats and offset the 2 Intimidates from their Mightyienas. As I do this fight, let me know in the comments what's your favorite fossil Pokémon. I think mine is going to be Omastar. It has decent stats and move pool, and once it gets access to Shell Smash, it's even stronger. Also, the design is not that bad, somewhat threatening, but not too ugly. Once we have defeated all of their Pokémons, Steven gives us the Dive HM. With this move, we can reach the next major location in the game, in the Seafloor Cavern. Here we find the legendary Pokémon Kyogre still asleep, but Archie soon reaches us to try to wake it up. To stop him, we challenge him, and the fight against him is not that difficult. His Pokémons by this point are not that strong, and my moveset is good enough to deal with them. The only glaring weakness of Craidily at this point is my very low speed, made even worse by the nature. Even though we beat this guy in combat, the red orb activates anyway and wakes up the legendary. Now that both of them are active and fighting each other, to stop them we need to ask Rayquaza for help. While I do that, could you take a second to like the video if you're enjoying it, subscribe if you're not already, and since you're already there, if you don't mind, leave a comment too. Now that we rescued the planet from destruction, we can take on the last gym leader. Juan uses water types mostly, and so this should not be too bad for us. But since I am so slow, Luvdisc can move before me, and he takes the time to confuse and infatuate me. At least it does not waste too much time this time around, and I can move on to his next Pokémons. Kingdra was also quite the wall, because my damage is nowhere near enough to two-shot it, and so I had to stay there and fight it for a while it was setting up double teams and resting up. This was by far the most dangerous Pokémon on his team, but with a lucky streak of hits through his evasion, I was able to finish off the seahorse before it could rest again. Once we got over that hump, the rest of the fight was very easy, just a couple of Giga Drains and his Pokémons were defeated. With all of the badges in our possession, we can now use the remaining HM, and so we can finally enter the Victory Road. Here we are soon challenged by Wally, and unfortunately I lost once to him. I got toxicked, and then Gardevoir trolled me with Double Team. The second attempt goes much better, mostly because I immediately get an Omni Boost with Ancient Power, and with the increased attack there is little his team can do. Even the increased speed, even though it's not much, it's just enough to allow me to move before his Pokémons. The second boost against Gardevoir was not really necessary, but at least it made Magneton go by a bit faster. Once we have defeated Wally, I tried to get through Victory Road with as little fights as possible, so that I would reach the league not super overleveled. Just before entering, I got the substitute move from the girl on top of them all, and I was ready to take on this final challenge. Our first match is going to be against Sidney and his dark types. Here I was a bit surprised at how frail our substitute was. My Tiena was able to destroy it in just a couple of crunches. I really thought it would last a lot longer. To make things worse, the Omniboost from Ancient Power was nowhere to be seen, and so I had to defeat these Pokémons with my attack lowered. That was not great, because even though they are not super high level, they are still quite tanky, and it took me multiple attacks to defeat each of them. I took a big risk and used one last substitute that took me down to very little HP, but that was the correct play as I was able to defeat Cacturn and then tank the Absol attack. From here I spammed Giga Drain, which was not weakened by Intimidate, to recover some HP. I then used another Ancient Power and finally got the Omniboost. That happened just at the right time, giving me enough speed to outspeed his remaining Pokémons and defeat them with 1 Giga Drain each. Sidney turned out to be much closer than I was expecting. Let's hope that Phoebe is a bit easier. The unfortunate part about fighting ghosts is that return is not useful, and because of that I was left with little PPs with the other moves. To try to fix it, I equipped a Leppa Berry because I know that I will run out of PPs at some point, especially if I do not get many Ancient Power boosts. Fortunately, in this attempt, I got it in the first attack, and so I could play through most of the fight with my stats increased. Even if that was the case, her Pokémons managed to survive a lot of attacks, and I even had to use the Leppa Berry. I also made a major misplay along the way. I should have used Substitute again to protect myself from annoying moves, but since I didn't use it, one of her Bannets was able to use Will-O-Wisp on me. The chip damage from the burn was not really a problem, but the lowered attack was, and that forced me to spam Giga Drain. Fortunately, I just barely had enough PPs to get through her remaining Pokémons. For the third Elite Four we have Glacia, and you might think that she should be easy since I have the type advantage with Ancient Power, but that did not turn out to be the case. Once again, I almost never got an Omniboost from Ancient Power, and because of that, most of her Pokémons were able to move before me, and so they could attack me before I could do anything and chip me down. Or should I say chunk me down, because their ice moves, considering a stab, dealt a lot of damage to me. In the successful attempt, I was able to get a boost very early on, but even then this fight was not that free. Since Hail hits you even behind the substitute, between the HP loss from the sub and the Hail, I got kinda low around halfway through. Eventually the Hail stopped, and thanks to my boosts, I was able to sweep through her remaining Pokémons, giving me a well-deserved victory. Last but definitely not least, we have to deal with Drake. He was quite scary because his Pokémons are very tanky and can do a lot of damage, both physical and special. I tried to fish for Omniboost against his lead Shelgon, but between protects and other stuff, it never happened and I wasted a lot of PPs. Eventually I decided to move on and keep a couple of PPs for his dragon flying Pokémons. Altaria came out next, so it was a good opportunity to try to get an Omniboost, but once again it did not happen. At this point I was quite worried, because there is still more than half of his team and I do not have much going on for me. At least this Kingdra does not use the double team strategies, so eventually I can break it too. Eventually Flygon comes out, and this guy deals a lot of damage with Earthquake, but crucially is not able to destroy the sub in one attack, and that gives me enough time to destroy it with 2 Giga Drains. I used my last Ancient Power against Salamence, but because of Intimidate the damage was low. But then I got an extremely lucky crit in the next attack, putting down the big dragon once and for all. and finally we can attempt the champion. Here I lost once in the first attempt because I got toxicked and then my Lotic stole me. The second time around went a bit better. I set up the sub at the start and then I started fishing for more Omni boosts. Things did not start very well. Wailord is faster than me and can break the sub in one attack. Fortunately, I got a boost early on, but even with the special defense increase, the sub could not take a hit. At this point, my HP was too low for another sub, so I just had to go for it. Thankfully, with the speed increase, I can use sub before my Lotic can do anything and tank his ice beams. With a couple of Giga Drains, I am able to defeat my Lotic and restore a good chunk of my HP along the way. That allowed me to put up even more subs, protecting myself from toxics. Things were not looking too bad, but I really wanted to have a sub alive whenever he sent out Gyarados, so that I would be able to block the Intimidate. Thankfully, his Ludicolo allowed me to do so, and after recovering a bunch of HP by Giga Draining Whiscash, his last Pokémon came out. Surprisingly, a single Ancient Power was enough to defeat the Sea Snake, and with that, Craidily became the champion of the Hoenn region. This was definitely an interesting run. I was expecting Craidily to be hard to use, but even if I did not level all that much, it was still able to clear the game with a respectable time and not that many resets. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, and all of that YouTube stuff. If you have video ideas, feedback, leave it down in the comments. And I'll see you next week. Bye!